You don't want to have just a personal brand, but as a company, you also want to be like, okay, ColdIQ, not just Michel, not just Alex. And so I started posting literally 2 years ago, around August 2023. And since then, it has been the biggest growth lever for our business. Even to this day, 80% of the lead we generate come from our LinkedIn organic content. I think the growth has been insane. It's a topic I can tell that interests a lot of people, like the intersection of sales and AI. It's one of the hottest industry right now. So there is a lot of interest. People want to learn about tools. People want to learn about workflows. And so I attribute part of the success to this. I think we've been in the right industry at the right moment. And so we've been also very consistent. Since the beginning of the year, me and my business partner shook hands on the fact that we would post 5 times per week, no excuse. And so we've really built that discipline to post every single day. The more you scale, now like the business is thriving, we can hire people to help us with the content. But I think the consistency on LinkedIn, I would say, is the number one factor that got us where we are today.
Hello, Alex. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to the show.
Hey, Thomas. Thanks a lot for having me.
So, Alex, for those who don't know you, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Alex. I'm 29, originally from Belgium. I'm living a bit as a nomad at the moment, spending a lot of time between Barcelona, Cape Town, and Bali. And I'm the co-founder at ColdIQ. So we started the business a bit more than 2 years ago. To define it in a very small amount of words, we are the go-to place for everything go-to-market. So we have our own agency where we help B2B companies with a go-to-market motion. And the way we got started was to help companies with cold email and lead generation. And then over the last 2 years, we developed into a multi-product company. So we also have an info product where we teach people how to start the AI sales agency. And then we also created a tool directory on our website where we compare the best GTM software. So we have an agency, an info product, and then a tool directories to help people select the best tools for the GTM motion.
That's exciting. And before we discuss more your business, I was reading more about your biography on your LinkedIn, and I think you really well describe like different parts of your life throughout your 20s, because I think you achieved quite a lot already. So can you briefly tell us what did you actually do? Because I think like when you decided to travel the world, start the business, I think it can be quite inspiring. So can you tell us more?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say until I was 21, I had a very traditional path, like growing up in Belgium, where I was from, did my high school there. In Belgium, it's very common to do a gap year when you graduate from high school, which I did. So I spent 4 months in Antwerp, which is another city in Belgium, to learn Dutch. And after that, I moved to Sydney in Australia for 6 months because my English was pretty bad. You can still hear the French accent today. Cannot get rid of it. But I went to Sydney to actually practice and learn English. And after that, I really always knew that I wanted to do something around business. My parents have their own company. So I was like, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to have my own business one day. So I enrolled for a business school in Brussels. And for the first 3 years of my bachelor, I was really bored. I was like, okay, this feels so removed from all the cool sides of entrepreneurship. At that time, I was reading a lot of biography, like the biography of Steve Jobs. I was so inspired. I was like, wow, this is the best way to learn business. Actually learn from people that have done it, not from some like business school professors that have never built a business. And so after the 3 years, I had to decide, do I do a master degree like everyone is doing? You know, that's like the general path in Belgium. If you study business, usually it's like bachelor, master, then you work for consulting. You try to get into like a McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group. And I was like, yeah, I'm not sure if it's really what I want. And so after my bachelor, I decided to do a coding bootcamp. So at that time, tech was like super up and coming. Everyone wanted to like move to Silicon Valley. Like that's where like the cool startups were being built. And I decided that I wanted to get a bit more technical. So I enrolled in 9 weeks coding bootcamp at Le Wagon. They have like coding school around Europe to teach people computer programming. And during that bootcamp, I met 2 guys that were like a bit nerdy that were talking about that new thing called Bitcoin. I was like, wow, I've never heard about this. It was 2017. So it was like before the mainstream about like Ethereum and Bitcoin.
I think back then I didn't know what it is. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, same here. Like for me, it was really, I was like, what do you mean? Like internet money? Like, what is this?
Do you remember, sorry to interrupt, what was the price back then?
I think at that time it was still below 10K. I think we were around like 8 or 9K per
Yeah,
Bitcoin.
wow.
Like really, like it has changed a lot. And I've always been very curious. So those guys started talking about that internet money, and I was like, wow, like this might be the next big thing. So I was asking a lot of questions. I was annoying them all the time. I was like, okay, but how do you buy it? Like, how do you sell it? And I didn't have a lot of money at that time, but I had a bit of money saved. So I invested around 10K of my savings into crypto, and I got extremely lucky, like zero skills, pure luck. You know, sometimes with things in life, where it's like a bit of skills, a bit of discipline, and a bit of luck. For me, it was 100% luck. Like I wasn't really good at like crypto investments, but I ended up making 5x what I invested. So I ended up in December 22. I was reaching the end of the boot camp, and I was like, what I'm gonna do with those 50K, and I had set that threshold to be, if I reach 50K, I sell everything, because otherwise I know that it's so volatile, I might lose everything. So at 50K, sold everything, and then I was like, okay, I'm 22, I have 50K, I have no idea what to do next. Let's travel. And at that time, I had read the 4 Hour Work Week from Tim Ferriss. I don't know if you've read it, but
Yeah, of course. I think it's like a classic that you have to read.
it's a bit of like the Bible of digital nomadism, right? It's like
Yeah.
that's working from anywhere. And I was like, wow, this is exactly the life I want. I love freedom. I'm super curious. And so with the money I made with Bitcoin, I was like, let me do what Tim Ferriss is explaining in the book. He had that concept of a mini retirement. So every year he goes somewhere for 1 month and try to learn something new. So that's how he became like a kickboxing champion. Then he went to Buenos Aires to
Yeah.
become like a professional tango dancer. And I was like, let me do this, but condense in 1 year. So every month I'm going to go to a new country to learn something new. And so I started to plan a bit my itinerary. So I went to China to learn Kung Fu. Then I went to Nepal to do yoga. Then I went to Thailand to do Muay Thai. Then I went to Bali to do some volunteering. And so each country was linked to like a new skill or a new activity I wanted to do. And so this was like a very forming year for me. And around that time, I was trying to learn as much as possible about like all the tech jobs. And at that time, one thing that was very up and coming was growth hacker. That was like the very exciting job that everyone wanted to have. And so during that year, I knew that I wanted to do everything I could to become a growth hacker in a startup.
And out of those countries that you visited, which one did you enjoy the most and why?
I think the one that gave me the biggest cultural shock was China, because I was also in a part of China that's usually not very touristy. You know, it's not Beijing, it's not Shanghai. I was in a city called Dengfeng. That's where they have all the kung fu school. Like it's really in mainland China. You needed like a special visa to be able to go there. So usually China are fine if you want to visit like the big cities, but they don't like too much to go to the remote areas. And I was really living on the campus with like all the younger Chinese guys training to become Kung Fu master. Usually they go there to then enroll in the army later on. So it was a very interesting experience that I don't think a lot of people went through.
And based on what did you choose what countries you're going to visit? Or what countries and also what type of skills you're going to learn?
I didn't have anything specific in mind. Like it wasn't something around like a professional activity. I think during that time I was reading a lot of books. Like I've always been like an avid reader. I think that year I must have read like 30 or 40 books. So I was like trying to get into like entrepreneurship and like learning about startups. But about the skill per se that I was learning in the different countries, I didn't have like a set list of country. I was just looking like what would be a fun activity to learn, and then I was just looking what's the best country to do that. So for example, I was like, oh, I'm always wanted to be a good cook. Let me go to Italy. And so I chanced, I have like a remote cousin that lives in Milan, and he was the neighbor with a private chef. So I was like, oh, let me go to Milan for a month and I'm going to work for the private chef. And I think it was the perfect age to do that. I think in your 20s should be the decade where you expose yourself to the biggest amount of things, not being too set in like your career and making money. And so at that time, like it's probably one of the best decisions I've ever taken, because I don't think I would be who I am today without those forming months around the world.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. And to be honest, I think it sounds like amazing experience. I've always enjoyed traveling as well, although not as exotic or interesting as you. But I can only agree that like getting out of your comfort zone by moving to different country or living in a different place, it's definitely something that I would recommend to everyone as well.
I agree, and it's also like a bit magical in today's world that you can do both now, right? It's like for the generation of our parents was like, okay, you need a career, and if you were someone that was constantly traveling, like you would be some sort of hippies, like a bit disconnected from the world. And I think now that's one of the biggest joy of our generation is that being able to manage your business from any place in the world. Like I find that like such a great opportunity. Even though I would say that with age, you also feel the needs of having a base. Like the older I get, the more I realize that I want to build something somewhere. And so now I've been very lucky that a lot of my friends are in the same situation as me to have like online businesses, to make online money. And so usually we travel between us to different destinations. But I feel now some of my friends are starting to settle down, having children. And so the nomadic life is nice for your 20s, for your early 30s. But at some point you also need to pick a place and build there.
Yeah. And I think that maybe sometimes people might be a bit scared because of language barrier. And these days, of course, you can probably speak in most places English. But what was it like, for example, in China or some more exotic destination? Was it still okay with English, or how did you communicate?
In China, it was very difficult. Most people don't speak a single word of English, so you need to use a lot of a translator. But it's part of the charm of traveling, in my experience. You know, it's like sometimes I was reading book of what it felt like to be an explorer in like the early 20th century or like the 19th century. It was like people couldn't communicate, nothing, no internet, like no communication. I think there is a sense of adventure that we lost a little bit. And now if you go to Thailand, you go to Bali, it's like these are like theme parks for adults, right? It's like everything is like made for you to go around. It's very easy. You order a cab. Everyone speaks like decent English. So I like those countries that are a bit more wild, where you need to like be a bit resilient to
Yeah,
go about it.
makes it more exciting.
Yeah, I mean, much more. And you also get experience. It teaches you to also be a bit like gritty, to like find your path, knowing where to go, asking people around. Like I think it's part of the traveling experience. And then in terms of languages, I would say that for Latin America, there you just simply need to speak Spanish. I think the experience you're gonna have in Latin America, if you just speak English, is not going to be that great because most people don't speak English. And if you speak the local language, like you're going to have hell of a time, but you need to speak the local language.
And I think it also shows to people that you just make some kind of effort. And it's like if you hear someone speaking your native language, it always makes you kind of appreciate them or more friendly and supportive to help them to communicate. And just as you mentioned it, what's your level of Spanish? Are you fluent?
Yeah, I'm quite good. Like I'm not like bilingual, but I can really get around. I did also my Erasmus during my business school. I did 6 months in Madrid. Then during my world trip, I spent like around 5 to 6 months in Latin America. And so I had plenty of time to practice. And now I live in Barcelona, so I can still
Yeah.
maintain.
Yeah. No, I really enjoy talking about traveling and this stuff. But then when in your story, when did you get idea for the Cold IQ or when does this come into place?
Yeah, so then after that world trip, I had around 4 years where I was working for different startups in Germany. I got accepted into a program that got me my first job in Leipzig, which is a city in East Germany. Worked there for a year. Then it was like a bit too small. I was very ambitious. I was like, okay, I want to be in the city where things happen. And I think in Europe, usually if you want to work in tech, it's either Paris, London, or Berlin. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna spend my 20s in Berlin, super international city, like a lot of stuff happening. So I spent almost 5 years in Berlin working for a lot of super cool startup. And the latest one I worked at before joining Michel, my business partner at ColdIQ, was WorldCoin. So that was the crypto company of Sam Altman. Crazy project. That could be an entire podcast. But I worked there in operations. Really learned a lot because I think it was one of the smartest team I've ever worked with. Everyone like top tier A players. So it taught me a lot about operations, how to run a business. That's now to this day helped me a lot into managing the business at ColdIQ. And the story is that ColdIQ actually got started by my business partner. So Michel, for the backstory, made a lot of money with affiliates when he was a bit younger. So he was really always finding ways to like generate some good passive income with affiliates. And then one day he decided to apply that to sales tech. So he was running a lot of cold email campaigns. He started to research a lot of different tools, and then he was like, "Hey, wait! I made money with affiliates before. It was with betting websites of all industries." And he was like, "I made it work with betting websites. What if I can make it work with sales tech tools?" And so he created a directory of all the best sales tools to run outbound.
Yeah.
And from there, the traffic started to pick up. And then some people are like, okay, cool. I love your website. I love of the tools you are like showing, but I need help to orchestrate all those tools to run cold email for my own company. And so that's how he was like, oh, let me do that for you. And that's how he started delivering the service to one client, two clients, three clients. And then
Yeah.
at that time, I was becoming a bit unhappy. You know, it's like I think a lot of men go through this when they approach the end of 20s. I had probably one of the best job I could have at Worldcoin, like a very prestigious, one of the top tech company to work in the world. But I felt a bit impactless. Like the company is growing, you're just like a gear in the system. Like you want to do things, but then you have like approvals. You have like a manager and a manager of a manager and a manager of a manager of a manager. So you feel a bit small. And at that time, me and Mish have been friends for like more than a decade now. And he called me one day and he was like, give me one of the important pep talk in my life when he told me that he always saw me as one potential competitor to him in business. He was like, from all of our friend group, I think you're the only one that could compete with me in business. But if you stay working as an employee, you will never be anything remotely of a competitor. And I think that gave me a bit the fire to be like, come on, fuck it. I'm 27. If I don't take a shot at it now, I will never do it. So I quit my job and I was like, right now AI is happening. That's going to be the equivalent of the internet in the early 2000s. I need to do something around AI. And then little by little, Mish told me about that tool called Clay. That was like the new hot thing that all the companies needed help to implement. And somehow we ended up starting working together. And it was like, okay, let's just make it a massive business. I feel there is potential. Me and Mish are very complementary. Mish is like the visionary, very creative person. And I'm like a really good operator. I can just juggle a lot of different things. I can manage team. I can hire people. I can build processes. I can build systems, and he's a really good creative person. So I was like, okay, that's a match made in heaven. And so that's how we went
Yeah.
from being the two of us to now being 31 people full time at ColdIQ.
Wow, 31, you said?
Yeah.
Wow, it's big. It sounds like a perfect timing, not fully satisfied in the job. There is an AI boom, you've got a friend who calls you, and such a great opportunity. So, wow, it sounds really cool. And just out of curiosity, I haven't really checked it before, but is the WordCoin still around or?
Yeah, it's thriving. So maybe I can explain in very, very shortly what they do. But so Sam Altman is the CEO of OpenAI. Everyone knows OpenAI. That's like the company behind ChatGPT.
The tool we use every day, all of us.
Yeah. And his hypothesis is that AI is going to become so good in the coming years that very soon we won't be able to distinguish an AI from a human. And so we
Mm,
need to find a way to verify who is human on the internet. Because right now you might be interacting with like some customer support, with like some agents that you think are humans, but are actually just AI agents in the background. And so
yeah.
the whole goal with Worldcoin is that they developed a hardware device called the Orb. So it's like a spheric aluminum device that scan your irises to just give you what they called a world ID. And so it gives you a way to verify your humanness on the internet. And so to give a very concrete example, imagine in gaming, a lot of people play video games, but they don't know if they're actually playing with humans or if they're playing with bots. And so by being WorldCoin verified, you can actually log in to a specific gaming platform and showing to everyone that you're actually a verified human. So it sounds a bit dystopian. And I think to have like the mass adoption, we're maybe still 1 or 2 years away from it, because a lot of people are like, oh, it sounds so Black Mirror. I need to scan my iris. So a lot of people are like, a bit hesitant to do it, but the world is going to wake up to the needs of having such like a humanness verification system in
Mhm.
the coming months or years. So when I joined, it felt like imagine explaining that to your parents who are or to your family. People were like, I have no idea what my son is doing. Now that like GPT is becoming more mass market, people are understanding, okay, what are AI agents? People are starting to realize to, okay, we need a system to recognize who's a human on the internet.
Yeah, I completely understand with the speed of advancements in the AI. Who knows when people listen to this episode, it's maybe going to be outdated already. And to come back to your startup, to your business, when you started, what was it like with the competition and with the market? Were there already similar tools, similar companies, or not that many?
Yeah, so I think lead generation agencies have been there forever, right? It's like a lot of companies for the last, let's say, 10, 15 years, sending cold emails has been a very common way to generate more revenue for companies. It's like one of the easiest way to prospect. So typically you do some cold email or you do some cold calling. But I think what reshuffled the card a little bit is the invention of Clay. So I don't know if you're familiar with Clay, but it's a tool that you probably have seen on your LinkedIn feeds that everyone is talking about. We ended up becoming one of the biggest Clay implementation agencies in the world. And for the audience, for people that don't know what Clay is, you can imagine Clay as a very big Excel spreadsheet that's connected to all the B2B data source in the market. So email finders, so like tools that help you find the email of a prospect, tools that help you find the company headcount, tools that help you integrate the data to your CRM, tools telling you what is like the latest news about that specific company. And so before Clay, all that data enrichment process was a pain in the ass. Like you had to download a CSV file, you would upload the CSV file in one tool, then if you needed more data, you would kind of re-download the CSV file, re-uploading in another tool. And Clay changed the game because you could finally centralize all the data enrichment that you need to do good prospection in a single tool. And a lot of companies realized the need of this because cold email in 2025 or even in 2023 when we got started, you cannot just send 20,000 emails to 20,000 people with the exact same thing. Like this doesn't work anymore. Like just shooting a lot of cold emails to like thousands of people, you're not going to get any answer. Like you need to figure out who's in the market to buy your product or solution. And the best way to do that is to look for what we call intent or trigger that would indicate that the prospect is in the market for your product or solution. And Clay solve that issue pretty much. Like you can find the exact data point you need to figure out who you should actually reach out right now to pitch your offering.
It's like sometimes you get these sales pitches in your LinkedIn inbox that make literally no sense, just for the people to get an idea what we're talking about.
Exactly. Like you really see like bad outreach is just like a message that feels like it could have been sent to 10,000 other people. Like there is nothing about you, there is nothing about your business, there is no relevancy. I think that's the word that people should always keep in mind when you do outbound is like, how can you be relevant to the person you're like reaching out to? Like, what do they care? What do they need? What is something that happened to them recently that would make them buy from you? And that's what you need to figure out in your outbound process. If you just shoot like hey, here is what I do, work with me. Like no one has time for this.
Yeah. And throughout the journey of the business, have you noticed that there are like more competitors emerging? Because I can maybe imagine that with the rise of AI, that people see it a bit easier, or like there's like opportunity, or has it been the same?
No, it has been massive. Like I think the amount of right now, some people call it clay agencies. So it's like agencies implementing clay for the companies has been skyrocketing, and that's one of the biggest issue, in my opinion, of running an agency is that there is very little moat as a business. Right? You have no tech. Everyone can go on YouTube, watch some tutorial, create a landing page, and start pitching the services. And so we had the case that was like a very sad episode in the entrepreneurship journey. Like a bit earlier this year, we had like two of our best people that left and just copied the business to launch a competitor. That's like part of the game because there is nothing that prevents anyone from launching a similar business, right? It's not like you're building a software and you're doing a lot of internal development. So right now, it's one of the easiest business to start. But I really think that everything we have done over the last 2 years in terms of brand building and reputation like really puts us in another category. Also with Clay, they have also a partner program a little bit similar to what Salesforce and HubSpot did to grow through partners. Like they also position us as like one of the top partners, and so we also get referrals from Clay and from other tools that we implement. So I think in business, the longer you can stay in the game, the easier it's gonna get. And so for us, we've been there for like more than 2 years, posting every day on LinkedIn. People start to really be like, I've seen those guys. I know Alex. I know Michel. I've seen ColdIQ. And
Mhm.
so I think our brand is helping a lot to separate us from the competition.
I was going to say too that it's worth building the brand and the reputation that you've been, as you said, in the game for 2 years, building your name. Like it perfectly comes back to LinkedIn and the power of building your personal brand because you've got a great following. As we discussed before, it's not only LinkedIn but other social media platforms. And just as we are talking about it, is actually that the reason why you started building your brand like on the LinkedIn because of your business to build your name, find clients, or have you even started with LinkedIn before?
Yeah, so for that, I actually owe it to my business partner. So Michel, that's how he got the first clients for ColdIQ. He tried many times to be consistent on LinkedIn. Nothing was really happening. And then he loves to tell the story. I think it's a really good story that one day he was really sick. He didn't feel like it. He was like, oh, I really need to be consistent. I need to post that LinkedIn post. But he was like trying to justify to himself to not do it. And on that specific day, he sort of gathered the force to be like, no, I said I would do it. Let me post that post. And that post went viral. I think it made like 600 likes, booked like 20 meetings. And
Mm.
from that post, I think he closed like 3 new clients. And so when I joined him in the business, after 3 months of like setting up some operations, he was like, why don't you start writing as well? And so I was like, oh, I also want to develop my brands. Like, I think it's also the problem with a business. If there is only one famous person in the business, like it makes the business a bit weak, right? You don't want to have just a personal brand, but as a company, you also want to be like, okay, ColdIQ, not just Michel, not just Alex. And so I started posting, I think, yeah, literally 2 years ago, around August 2023. And since then, it has been the biggest growth lever for our business. Even to this day, 80% of the lead we generate come from our LinkedIn organic content.
Mhm. And I was going to say that, as you said, if you started 2 years ago, you've got quite impressive following. Just a few more cases and you'll be celebrating beautiful milestone on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think the growth has been insane. It's a topic I can tell that interests a lot of people, like the intersection of sales and AI. It's one of the hottest industry right now. So there is a lot of interest. People want to learn about tools. People want to learn about workflows. And so I attribute part of the success to this. I think we've been in the right industry at the right moment, and so we've been also very consistent since the beginning of the year. Me and my business partner shook hands on the fact that we would post 5 times per week, no
Mhm.
excuse. And so we've really built that discipline to post every single day. Now we have a team to help us. We have an amazing designer. We have also Millie, our personal brand manager, that's helping a lot to coordinate the content. So things get easier, right? The more you scale, now like the business is thriving, we can hire people to help us with the content. But I think the consistency on LinkedIn, I would say, is the number one factor that got us where we are today.
I'm glad to hear that. I was going to ask you, how do you manage everything, like such as growing your brand, growing your business, and even to have life? So is it like having the right team, systems, and everything in a place?
Yeah, it's having the right systems. Like I think a lot of people still look at content as like a marketing topic to be like, I'm just gonna give it to my marketing team. It's not something I need to personally deal with. And I would strongly disagree with that. For me, content is probably the highest leverage activity for any founders in today's age. This is truly the biggest lead gen method for most businesses in B2B. You need to invest a lot in content. And so for us, we invested a lot of time in building systems and operationalize our content system. So it's very well managed. My personal brand manager, Emily, we would talk like maybe once a week to discuss a few topics, interesting thing I've discovered, new workflows that have been working in the company. She's going to interview some of our people in the business to also present some interesting findings. And based on this, based on also on the sales calls that I'm sometimes watching from a sales team, I'm just going to gather as much data from things happening in the business or during the sales call, or also more generally, more broadly, what's happening around AI in sales, and try to make as interesting content as possible. And so usually me and Millie are going to draft the posts. Then we are going to have a designer that's going to come in. She's going to get a brief of like, okay, do we need a carousel? Do we need an infographic? And then she's going to make the design to go with the post. And
Yeah.
so usually I have at least 7 posts ready in advance. So I just need to schedule it, and then yeah, I'm ready to go.
I like it, and I completely agree, especially if you consider how much content there is. So it's really important just to stand out, like with the right visuals, well-written copy, and just the design that stands out and the overall post that also achieves your goal. So I think you're a perfect example, and you really explained it well. I'm pretty sure that you receive a lot of DMs, and like one of those DMs probably is something that is like, "Oh, Alex, have you got any advice or how to grow, how to, skyrocket or stuff like that?" So when you get messages like that, or even if someone asks you, what would be your answer?
Focus on the right things. In business, I see it now, and even though I'm giving the advice, is something I want to repeat for myself as well. But I think in today's age, you have so many, call it shiny objects. Alex Hormozy, he calls it the woman in the red dress. Is the reference to the Matrix movie when there is
Oh,
the woman in the red dress passing by. I think operating a business in 2025, it really feels like this. Like also, the more you start to have any sort of success, everyone's want to offer you things, partnership and coffee chat and synergies and catch up calls, and you need to be very focused. You need to know what is truly an action that's going to move the needle for your business, and you need to do more of this. And so
yeah.
for me, for example, I know that I have 10,000 urgent things I should be doing. Like that's the reality for most business owners, is that everything feels urgent. There's so many things you should be working on. But I know that on a daily basis, the action that moves the needle the most is me posting on LinkedIn. And so that, for example, is one of my non-negotiable. I know that I need to post Monday, Friday. I need to have a quality post going out, and the rest can wait. And I think that's probably one of the best advice I can give in business, is like, what is an action that you know is moving the needle for your business that you can repeat every single day? Because I truly believe that it's putting the reps that gets you anything meaningful in life. It's the same if you want to have a great body. It's like you can have a crazy session and lifting weight for 4 hours. This doesn't compare to going 45 minutes every single day for 2 years. And so putting the reps is really what build people and what build businesses.
I think so too, and I can agree. Like people text you and think that it happens overnight or in a few weeks, and then you ask them when they started on LinkedIn, and they tell you, I don't know, a few weeks or a few months ago. So it's really about sticking in for the long run. And also something we discussed just before the recording, for example, when it comes to podcasting, also that it takes time, and there's just a few episodes, and if you don't see results in the beginning, to keep going, and in the future you hopefully see results. So I like the answer you gave.
What helps a lot as well is like enjoying the process, right? It's like you should really design. That's what I try to do for myself as well. Is like designing a lifestyle where I could be living like this for the coming 5 years. Like for
Hmm.
me, if I start to see that I hated the previous week, it means that I need to change something, because I truly believe that growing a business is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And so you really need to make sure that what you do, you enjoy it, and you're ready to live like this for the coming months or even years, because that's how you achieve anything meaningful.
I agree. I also try to say to have fun and enjoy the journey, because it just makes it easier to show up if there is something that you are just looking forward to. And as we just discussed LinkedIn, what about the other social media platforms? Because I saw that you are, for example, on X, YouTube, Instagram, you've got some impressive following on other platforms too. So are these just like additional ones to this, or have you got any bigger plans with those as well?
Yeah, so the goal for us is to build the best content system out there. That's where Michel, my business partner, is spending most of his time. We're really impressed with people like Gary Vaynerchuk, Alex Hormozy, that really manage to be everywhere. Like you can connect
Yeah.
on any social media, they are everywhere. And so right now we feel that one of the biggest lever we can pull for a business is also to build an entire content system. So LinkedIn, I think we really get it under control. We have good processes. We know what works. We know what doesn't work. And so right now we're starting to tiptoe a little bit in other platforms. So on X, We've had like a few threads that run viral. It's more about like general tech stories, AI stories. Like we don't really pitch the business too much. Like we haven't really cracked the code on how to transfer eyeballs we get on X to meetings booked. Like on LinkedIn, it's very easy for us to see the correlation between impressions to meetings booked. On X last week, I got retweeted by Elon Musk, which was like a crazy event, like the
Really? Oh
event.
my god.
Yeah, like out of the blue, and the thread went to 50 million impressions, which is completely insane when you compare it to like LinkedIn metrics.
Yeah.
But funny enough, it didn't book that many meetings, so it's like it's great. Like my following just exploded on X. I think I gained 15K followers in one day, but it didn't translate into a real business impact. And so right now we really try to be as consistent as possible on LinkedIn, because we can clearly see posting on LinkedIn and revenue are directly correlated. And now we would want to create that correlation with YouTube, with X and Instagram.
Mhm.
But yeah, you have only a finite amount of hours in each day, right? That's also the part when you want to scale a business, is like you should never stop doing what got you where you are. And so in our case, it's LinkedIn. And so LinkedIn still needs to get a priority, but at the same time, you want to keep scaling. So it's like, let's keep respecting the lead gen methods that has grown a business, and at the same time trying to like experiment for even expanding to other platforms. But I would say no platform is matching LinkedIn anywhere close at the moment.
Mhm. I like it and I agree. And just out of curiosity, what was the post on X about that he retweeted that?
Yeah, so with our team, we're always looking for some cool tech stories. And so that was a story about an app that Meta released a few years back, where they were spying on people. So they could
Okay.
actually track your behavior on your own phone. And so it's the whole story on like how Meta actually acquired, it was an Israeli company, and how then they could actually spy on the user behavior. And that's also what helped them figure out, for example, that Snapchat was taking over. And that's actually the story on how Meta decided to create the story feature on Instagram to kind of keep up with what was happening with Snapchat. So it's kind of like a very thrilling story on hidden decision happening in the big tech companies. And I think on X, people love this a bit, like not conspiracy theories, but like real kind of stories that haven't been like shed a light on.
Mhm.
And so I think Elon always loves to have a bit of beef with Zuckerberg. So you probably love a
Yeah,
story that
to
didn't,
make some buzz. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that didn't put Zuckerberg in a good light. So, but see, it's so funny with content. Is like sometimes I don't know, that thread. I was like, oh, there's a really good story. Like my team put it together, and then somehow Elon saw it and we shared it completely. When clearly I had like some media in the US that reached out to me to be like, oh, do you want to do an interview about data privacy? And I was like, oh, wow, like that's becoming a bit bigger than myself. Like for me, I just want to grow my business. I want to be like the new hero of data privacy.
Yeah. I remember there used to be some speculations before that there would be fight between Elon and Zach. Like, I don't know if it was MMA or BJJ or something like that.
Yeah, I think it
So
was for MMA. I wanted to go like in doing like a UFC fight.
I remember they even spoke that it could happen in Coliseum in Rome, but then they said that it's impossible. But Elon had like some ideas that it could happen, so it was really interesting.
He's so good at having beef with people. Like I find it very entertaining.
Yeah, me too. And Alex, just to be aware of time, as we'll be finishing soon, what are some of your hobbies or some things that you enjoy doing in your free time?
I'm a big sport practitioner. That's also for me one of the other non-negotiable. Every single morning I'm working out. I do a lot of things. I'm training for high rocks at the moment. So I love lifting. I love running. I also live close to the sea, so I'm swimming in open water. I'm also doing a lot of fighting sports. So I'm doing some kickboxing and some boxing, because that's really what allows me to be very sharp mentally. For me, I can really feel it if I'm traveling and if my sport routine is not adequate, I don't feel my best in the business. And so in the morning, I know there's going to be some chaos every single day that I will need to deal with. But I know that if I've done a hard thing in the morning, if I've done like a hard workout session, the rest of the day is going to feel easy. So it's almost like a mental exercise that I do is great, because you also like forge your body, but it also trained me to be sharp and resilient mentally for everything that's about to happen in the business.
Yeah, that is something that I completely relate to, both to start the day that way, because I think it sets the tone for the rest of the day, and also exercise in general, because it just helps you to switch off from maybe work, from other worries, and you just focus on the workout, and it makes the whole difference. Then you mentioned a few before, but have you got any other recommendations for any books, such as some that were impactful to you or that you would recommend to people?
About business, one of my favorites one is Hard Things About Hard Things. It's actually by one of the co-founder of A16Z, which is like one of the biggest VC. And it's like,
It's Anderson and Horowitz,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's actually written by Ben Horowitz, one of the co-founder. It's teaching a bit about the unsexy part of running a business, having hard conversation, letting people go, how to be a good manager in wartime, how to be a good manager in peacetime. It's funny, it's almost a book that I read too early because I was 22 and I read it. I was like, I'm nowhere close to be any manager or any CEO. But like sometimes a book that I reread, I think it's the type of book that you need to face a problem and then reread it and be like, okay, that's actually the best way to manage a situation. So that's one. Another one, I really love biographies. And for me, a book that changed my life is the biography of Steve Jobs. I think it's one of the most inspiring books I've ever read.
Walter Isaacson, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah, that I read when I was 15 or 16. I was doing some traveling in the US with my parents, and I remember being at the back of the car and like couldn't put the book down. And I was like, wow, this is exactly the life of greatness I want to live for myself.
But I highly recommend it as well. I knew, of course, Steve Jobs, as everyone probably knows, but after I read the book, it's kind of opened my eyes as well. So it's just amazing one. And Alex, we discussed it already, but can you summarize where people can find you, follow you, and promote any of your services?
Yes, to find more about me, you can go on LinkedIn, Alex Vaca, same on X, same on YouTube. I mean, there's not a lot of subscribers on YouTube, so you might have to do some more extensive research. And then if you want to learn more about a business, you can go to coldiq.com. And there's multiple ways where we could provide value. Either you can just go on a website, find the best go-to-market tools out there. We try to give like a very fair comparison. If you want to learn how to start your own GTM agency, we can also share all the learnings we've had over the last 2 years. And then if you need to help with your go-to-market, you can work with our agency directly and you can book a consulting call with us on the website directly.
As always, I will add any links to the show notes. And then the very last question, Alex, is there anything I should have asked you and did not, or any final piece of advice or anything you would like to share?
I would just like leave on a last note that try to have fun. Like it's also something I've understood for myself over the last 2 years is that it's gonna sound maybe a bit corny, but the happiness is not the destination. It's like enjoy the journey. For me, I've understand in the business is like we've reached a certain amount of success financially in terms of recognition. And it's like, no, I don't have like a destination in mind. I'm just like happiness is now. It's like building that business, building that personal brand, like enjoy the day to day because that's actually the happiness. You don't need to wait for the end destination. You don't need to wait for the exits, don't need to wait for the million of followers. It's like enjoy today.
It's very true. And I think it's a perfect piece of advice to finish with. So thank you so much, Alex. I really enjoyed it. I've known you from LinkedIn, but I'm really glad that we made it. So thank you so much. I wish you all the success. I really enjoyed the conversation. So happy to keep in touch. And yeah, thank you. Keep smashing it.
Likewise, thanks a lot for having me, and I also very enjoyed the conversation. Have a nice one.